There are a lot of T20 games that you cannot remember. That the details of just moments after you've seen them just disappear. People will often say, do you remember this game? And I was like, I have absolutely no idea what you were talking about. I don't feel like this game between the Sunrisers and Rajasthan is going to be one of them. And there's like a million reasons for that. Let's start with the fact that the Sunrisers won a game with bowling. And then not just with bowling, but with part-time spin. It's so weird and out there. And in the middle of them using all this part-time spin to win the game, Aiden Markram bowled the ball to fine leg. He bowled the ball to fine leg. What did we just watch? What kind of game was this? We're going to have to really dig in deep on this one, because this is a T20 game that I think will be tattooed onto your brain.
If you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months, plus gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a blocker protects the stumps with NordVPN today.
Abhishek, the Sunrisers slogging southpaws, whatever you called them, the Sunrisers have basically ridden this incredible opening duo all the way through this year. And then it comes to the finals and it just hasn't worked. Abhishek was barely in for any time at all. And Travis Head looked utterly out of form. It looked like he couldn't hit it anywhere. And yet they were saved by their first drop, Rahul Tripathi, who throughout the first part of the year, they weren't even thinking about as an option. He just suddenly came back in. And I tell you what, he is Mr. Intent. He was trying to hit 4s and 6s back in the old days when everyone was an anchor. And it was absolutely brilliant. But after 13 balls, he looked like he was about to melt. I don't think I've ever seen anyone get as hot as quickly as Tripathi did, except for the fact that the whole rest of the game, it was worse. It is worth mentioning just how hot it looked. And I was watching with a fan on me in England. These players were sweating at a level that I have not seen before. They would come out to bat and it was so hot that it actually seemed to affect the entire game plan. But Tripathi's form was also pretty damn warm, right? He was whacking the ball everywhere, even as the Sunrisers were losing wickets. And at one stage, they were scoring at nearly 2 runs a ball on a wicket that just didn't feel like that should be the case. But that's the Sunrisers. And then something changed. The Royals went with short, slow bounces. They went with long hops. They went all in on the long hop idea. And part of the reason was their 2 best bowlers from the last game, Trent Boult and R. Ashwin, had already bowled 5 of their 8 overs because they'd been used all the way through the power play. And at that stage, it made sense. Boult was moving the ball around. They were going up against the best batters who were trying to take the game down. So they put in their best bowlers to go up against it. But it meant that in that middle period where Ashwin and Chahal would usually interlock and hopefully at least one of them, if not both of them, do really well, Ashwin was almost already finished and Trent Boult had to be held to the death. This was not bad thinking by the Royals. The problem was this ended up incredibly bad. And the reason was, if you have a look in Trent Boult's first over, there were footprints on the pitch. Someone had watered the wicket because they were afraid it was going to be a little bit too dry. So there was moisture early on. Well, we know that the moisture eventually completely evaporated from this pitch. In fact, the only moisture from this pitch was all the dudes sweating on it. But at that point, the Royals were ahead. So they kept going with their slower ball, short balls. And even when Ashwin bowled, he bowled defensively. And it wasn't like that was a terrible plan because remember, Klaasen was knocking the ball around. They were thinking to themselves, we are getting ahead of the game. If the best striker of the last 2 or 3 years in T20 cricket and one-day cricket can't get the ball away, we must be bowling really, really well. So we're going to continue to bowl these balls. Did the Royals go too defensive? At the time, I probably didn't think they did. Looking back now, they absolutely and positively went too defensive. They should have been trying to bowl them out. But they got them for 175. They were favourites going into the next innings. And realistically, we had seen them play a similar game in the other semi-final and do well enough to win. But when they did come out to bat, there were signs that this was slightly different. How about this? Tom Kohler-Cadmore has been watching this tournament from the bench all the way through. He's been watching teams go for 300. He's been watching Jake Fraser McGurk just McGurking all over people, right? He's been watching Tristan Saab score at 3 runs a ball at the death. He's been watching hundreds and chases of incredible scores by Johnny Bairstow and all these different players, right? Everyone's been wackier. Random Indian players we'd never heard of before coming in and striking the ball like no one has ever seen before. Jaiswal and Butler making hundreds and smacking the ball everywhere and all this sort of stuff. And Tom Kohler-Cadmore has been watching all of this. And then he has come in, and in 3 innings, he's played on 3 of the least friendly. I don't know what the overall economy rate for the games that he has played in compared to all the other games, but I can tell you this. It's not been a run fest, right? He's been watching 6s and 4s just ping off everywhere, and he hasn't done this. On top of that, he clearly was not the right player for this pitch at that moment. Let's go further. We talked about how hot it was. He's an incredibly light-skinned white dude. He looked like he'd never seen the sun before. Did you see how hot he was? So much sweat was coming off his forehead that it was dripping into his eyes, and it looked like he couldn't hold his eyes. There was also that rumor that the Royals all had a sickness this week. He didn't look sick. He looked dead. No, let me take this back. He didn't just look dead. He looked like he had already died, come back as a zombie, and then had half of his head shot off. It was maybe one of the most painful innings we had ever seen. And when he finally went out, there was just a joy of relief that the poor man could go off and just have some water. However, Rajasthan was still massively in front of the game. Jaiswal was scoring at 2 runs a ball at the other end. It looked like he was going to do exactly what he did in the last game, just put them into a position where it was going to be very hard for the Royals to lose. But despite Jaiswal scoring at 2 runs a ball, because of Tom Kohler-Cadmore's innings and also Sanju Samson's start, they weren't actually scoring all that quick. And Pat Cummins thought to himself, do you know what? I think I can probably burgle out an over of spin here in the 8th over. First ball went for a single. The second ball went for 6. And at that stage, he was probably thinking, how am I going to get through all of my 5th over bowling? And knowing that Sanju Samson and Parag were going to knock it around, Cummins went, okay, I can get through another over of my 5th allotment by bringing Abhishek on. And that is when Sanju Samson went out. And that is the point at which this game went to a whole nother level that I still don't fully understand. But 2 guys who they really haven't bowled all that much this year, and generally when they have bowled, haven't been all that successful. Completely outbowled, if not the best spin duo in the league, then maybe the 2nd best spin duo in the league. Ashwin and Chahal. Ashwin went at over 10 runs and over, and Chahal got hit for regular 6s. And suddenly Abhishek Sharma and Shahbaz were unplayable. And this game completely changed, and going from outsiders with like a 10% or 20% chance of winning it to the Sunrisers never looked like losing again. Think about the 12th over, when Parag was like, we have fallen way behind here. It's now more than 10 runs and over. It's almost 11 runs and over. We're going to have to go. And so he decides to attack. And he plays a poor shot to what wasn't probably one of the better balls bowled. And he's dismissed. A couple of balls later, they have sent out Ashwin. And he has not hit a ball yet. He has missed both of his balls by a considerable margin. Suddenly, the ball is spinning absolutely at right angles, like Ashwin was bowling on the 5th day of a test match. And then Ashwin finally gets close enough to a ball. And what does he do? He gets an edge behind. There is 2 wickets and 1 run scored in the 12th over of this chase. There is no way that anyone thought that Shahbaz was going to play this big a part in this particular game with the ball. And remember, he was an impact sub. And at the time, based on how the first innings was going, I actually thought that Samveer Singh should have come in as the impact sub, because at least he could have bowled slower ball bounces or some slower balls into the wicket. And slower balls were basically unplayable all the way through this game. But they went with Shahbaz, who's the better player. And when he came out to bat, he didn't really have much of an impact. He didn't go out, but he didn't really progress the game forward at all. And by the end of the 12th over, which was his 3rd, he had 3 for 14. He almost had a double wicket maiden. And just as you thought there is absolutely no way that the Sunrisers could lose, Cummins was like, I don't know, I'm just going to bring on Aiden Markram and see how things go. And Markram bowled a ball to fine leg. I know I've already mentioned it. I know I mentioned it in the intro. But he bowled a ball to fine leg. And then the next ball was a free hit to Hetmeyer. And Hetmeyer missed it. And then he reviewed the wide and he was wrong twice. He missed a free hit and he blew a review on the same ball. His innings got absolutely no better. He hadn't even been fielding Hetmeyer. He'd been off the field. He came on as the impact sub. And 8 balls into his innings, it was just, the sweat was dripping off him. And if he looked tired, the guy at the other end, Jarrod, looked absolutely and utterly exhausted. And yet, at this point, Jarrod suddenly hits a 6 off Markram. And you think to yourself, they can still win this. They've now got a chance with Hetmeyer and Jarrod and Rodman Powell to come. They actually have a huge chance of winning this until Hetmeyer, having seen all those balls spin sideways, manages to go out to one that basically goes straight on. Perhaps he didn't pick it out the hand and it did something a bit weird. We're okay with that. But it was the limpest way to go out. And then, from then on in, Jarrod played an incredible innings that he might never remember. He was absolutely physically and emotionally drained all the way through that innings. I hope every drip they have in Chennai is currently being plugged into that man, because he absolutely deserves it. And then what does he get for all that trouble? For playing that incredible innings? He gets hit in the throat. The throat. No one wants to get hit in the throat. But I just want to read this out for you. Rajasthan were chasing 175, which we all believed, even if some of us thought this was a difficult pitch, was still probably below par. Jaiswal made 42 off 21. Jarrod made 56 off 35. That is 98 runs off 56 balls. That means Rajasthan faced 64 balls at the other end. The rest of their team, off those 64 balls, added 41 runs. And of those 41 runs, there was a leg bye, a no ball, and 3 wides. We saw a team that at one stage, there was a poll up during one of their games that said, will we see a team go all the way through the season undefeated? And 70% of the fans voting in that said yes. We saw that team melt in front of our very eyes. These Sunrisers, with no bowling and part-time spinners, just absolutely brutalized the Rajasthan Royals in a knockout game. And I am here for every single mad moment of it. Give me 100 more slow ball bounces. Give me more part-time spin. Why can't someone bowl to fine leg in every game and still win the match easily? I'll finish with this. In T20 cricket, sometimes there's a game. Sometimes there's a game.
If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.